Good afternoon and welcome to H3 TV, or good morning. I'm sorry. I don't know what time it is or what day it is. I'm Annie Meehan, and I love to bring you ideas and encouragement when you are facing disruption. H3 TV, we try to get here every week. We've had our own disruption the last couple of weeks with my husband needing bypass, but we are getting settled into new routines and taking care of each other so that we can keep moving forward. And we wanted to come back to you with our talk show, H3 TV, to encourage you. I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm an author, and more than anything, what I want to do is use my words to offer hope, health, and healing in the world. And so I bring you a guest every week. So please help me welcome to the stage, Fabi. Welcome. Say it again. I want to say Phoebe so bad. What
It's
is it?
okay. It's Febe, but you can say
Febe.
Phoebe. Phoebe's
Febe.
okay.
Phoebe. Well, nice to have you with us. Tell us, who are you? Where do you live? And what do you do?
All right. So my name is Febe, and I live in the city of Boston, and I am a life coach. I'm a doctor, a life coach, and a holistic nutritionist. And so I help my clients, do what they need to do, involving using all of my hats at once sometimes.
Lots of hands at once. And you're from Boston. Awesome. We know each other
Yeah.
from Innovation Women, a wonderful group where we uh, help women helping women elevate their message and their value out in the world through speaking, coaching, and writing. Yeah. So tell us a little bit, when you think of the word disruption, what comes to your mind? What picture is painted for you?
Hmm. To me, disruption, it's like an interruption, like sort of like something on the road, right? You're on the road, and sometimes, and then there's a construction on site, and sometimes you got to take a detour or realize, like, do you really want to get to where you were going? And so that's sort of like that's what stands out for me in terms of disruption. That kind of things that makes you think and reassess: is this the way that you want to go? Is it okay the way that you're doing it?
I love
That's
it.
what
I love
stands out
the
for me.
Yeah, reassess, like
Mhm.
reevaluate who you are, where you're going, what happened, what this detour means, if you're taking it, if you're not, if you're running from it.
Yeah.
So, how about you personally? Do you have a personal or professional disruption that you have faced and overcome in your life?
Well, I love that question. For me, lately, I've had um, transformational disruption, which is allowing me to look at myself in different ways. This started back when I decided to change from my medical career. So I'm a doctor. I went through my degree, I went through my board exams and did all that stuff. And then it was time to do residency and apply for residency and do all the stuff that doctors do. And then I decided, I don't think I want to do that. So that was a big moment where I had to reassess, okay, what is it that I want and who is it that I say that I am? Is it what people say that I am, or is it who I really am? And so, and
Mhm.
how have I pieced myself together to come to this place to then do what I do? And so that was a lot of reassessment in there. A lot of, like, I was thinking, I mentioned looking at the roadblock, in essence, just, looking at what's happening, and then deciding, which way do I want to take. And I took the road of, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. Like, I don't want to go into residency. I want to talk to people. I want to see why they don't do what they say they're going to do. I want to go into how they piece themselves together. And then that took me to understand me, how I piece myself together, so that I
Mhm.
could do something. I could be helpful, because if you haven't experienced, then people are going to be like, yeah, whatever, we know that.
Yeah, that's right.
So
People
yeah. So
relate to you when you relate to their stories. So, I
right.
love that you are saying you chose disruption.
Hmm.
You said something is not aligning here right with me being just a medical doctor. You are still a medical doctor,
Hmm.
but I want more. And I want to understand the psychology. I love when people love learning. Like, I think the best medicine in the world is when Eastern meets Western, and
Hmm.
we say we are one body with many parts, but all of us are connected, right? Like, our
Hmm.
mind, our body, our spirit is all connected, and how we feed it and how we move it and how we medicate it in all different ways is so important. So I love that you said, wait a minute, something's not aligning. I think some of the most intelligent people in the world, I was talking about intellectual intelligence and emotional intelligence, but really intelligent people connect the two. But
Hmm.
you had that willingness to self reflect and to say, does this align with me? Is this who I want to be? So I'm guessing, I could be wrong. I never want to assume, but some people around you were like, "What are you doing? Like,
Right.
are you what are you think like you've spent all this time and money and energy to become a doctor and now you're saying maybe not? What is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
So how did you keep your own positive mindset, your own hope about a vision that you were still defining as you were going? How did you stay confident and clear in that? How did you stay hopeful? What were some strategies you used?
The interesting thing about that is that when it first happened, there was nothing to stand on. I had nothing to stand on. It was empty. So I knew it wasn't that, but I wasn't really sure what it was. And even, that I used that at that moment, but I continue to use that in my life right now. So anytime that I want to move from I'm just a holistic nutritionist, like I started, now I want to be a life coach, now I'm a speaker, now I'm an author. It's understanding that I'm always standing on nothing when I'm choosing to do something new, and there's really not, there's nothing, there's no hope, there's nothing. I was just like standing there, like I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. But then with time, what happened to me was that I started to have faith in myself, right? So have faith in what I said I was working on, and be responsible for my word and for what I said I was going to do. And so even though it wasn't a really hopeful per se, because the people were saying stuff, and you question, like, oh my God, I spent all this money, my whole life surrounding around being a doctor. I mean, you got to study like your whole life to
That's
turn
right.
out.
Yeah. And you tell people, so they're waiting for you
Right.
to commit to that for the rest of your life, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So they're like, "So where are you doing residency?" And then I'm like, "Well, I'm not really doing residency." "Well, how come you're not doing residency?" And I wanted to be a surgeon. "Well, how come you don't want to be a surgeon anymore?" So, but with time, it was really like having faith in myself, and I still do this to this day, like in transforming myself in different ways and choosing what I want to call myself and what
Mhm.
I am. I want to choose. I still use that part of, okay, there's not much to stand on right now, but do I have faith in myself? And am I going to be responsible for what I'm saying to myself? Because
Mhm.
that in itself, it sort of fuels me into taking action, being more introspective in the things that are working and not working, and kind of like taking that responsibility step by step. And then eventually, yeah, then you then you get hope and excited when you
Yeah.
actually see that things are coming together. But
Yeah.
that's sort of like how it happened for me.
Okay. So I have two titles for you that I think are labels that fit well for many of us. And one is entrepreneur. And though you went to school to vet medicine, your brain was already wired as an entrepreneur. And that when I meet entrepreneurs, it's never what do you do? It's how many things do you do? Oh, well, I'm a speaker and I'm a coach and I'm an author and I'm a holistic healer and I'm all of these things because your brain is not a 9 to 5. This is what one title. It's big. And the second title I like to give entrepreneurs is curious. I'm a curious person and I'm an entrepreneur. So this is what I'm doing today, but I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. And I don't know where I'm being led, but I'm being open to whatever it's supposed to be. And however, I always say, like, I use my words to help people heal. So I use spoken words, written words, coaching words, encouraging questions. Like my words are my theme, but there's lots of different ways, so lots of different avenues. So I want to know, especially because you're a holistic healer, which I was just watching a video this morning and just it was very much just live on fruits, vegetables, and nuts. And it reminded me of a conference I went to 12 years ago, and a guy offered me all these seeds in the middle of the session, and I just thought he was so weird. And I just did not take any of those seeds. And for 12 years, that man's voice has been in my head. And he's just like the picture of health and fitness. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to take the dang seeds. So anyway, I want to know how you stay healthy when you face a disruption you choose or comes at you. And as a holistic healer, and I used to own gyms, I always think health is not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's financial, it's spiritual, it's career health, it's relationship health. What were you doing when people were looking at you saying, what are you thinking? How in the world would you do it? Because I know people do. When we change our minds and pivot, which is our brain, they're going, well, no, that's not comfortable. I'm comfortable doing the same thing I've always done and what I told people I was going to do. Somebody just hired me. They said, we don't want any surprises. I said, you shouldn't have hired me to speak. I'm always surprised. I surprise myself. I think I'm going to speak on something. Somebody says something, it just shifts. So anyway, I want to know, what did you do? What were some strategies? We know we have listeners looking at leaving their full-time job, that are entrepreneurs looking at going back to a full-time job. How did you take care of yourself in the unknown? You said in the nothingness, in the what is out there. How did you take care of yourself?
That's a great question. I want to pick a little bit on what you mentioned in that thing, and then pick that response. Um, a lot of the times we feel that we are wired to do something, and what I'm learning is that I call myself that wiredness into being. And
Mhm.
so that, yes, there is something in me that asks that question, but a lot of people ask that question, they don't do anything. So, you know what I mean? And so it's like, we call ourselves into what we say we are. And so even if I had that question when I was, going through medical school and finishing, if I never called myself into that, it would have never happened. And so sometimes we feel like, it was meant to be. I'm not wired to do that. I am wired to do that. And a lot of time it's more like, okay, I'm calling myself into that being and I'm taking responsibility for that. And then, God responds, right? The universe responds. Then things align. And like, how did this happen? Like being here. I don't know. It just happened. I saw you at the meeting and then I said, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Annie? And so, but when we call ourselves into that, then that's kind of like it's almost like our world rearranges to then support, and life supports what we're calling ourselves into being. And so
And you're willing to do.
and
You're
you're willing to
a
do.
doer. I'm a doer. Like people ask me, can you become emotionally intelligent? I say,
Hmm.
yes, but you have to be willing
You
and
have
do the work and live with intention. You don't have to just wake up and be it, but you chose to say yes. And one of the things you said as you introduced yourself was, I was curious why some people don't do what they say they're going to do. I was curious why people didn't do what they knew was best for them. And so you have a psychology curiosity of why. What's the why?
Mm,
So I think
right,
that's
right. But in that, isn't that interesting that a lot of humans, in essence, that's how we have planes. People ask questions. How do we fly? That's how we have, I don't know, Amazon, LinkedIn. I mean, we have all these things because
electricity, right?
exactly we ask questions, and a lot of people do have questions. It's just that the willingness to then call myself into that and be responsible for that, and then do the actions that come with being an entrepreneur, being a life coach, being a speaker, right? I'm sure for you it wasn't just like, oh, I woke up today and it's the part that comes with that. And a lot of the times is that even in this society, people feel like it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to call myself into this, and it didn't happen in 6 months, and it didn't work out for me. I'm not wired. It wasn't meant for me. I don't
Yeah,
have the patience of an entrepreneur. But a lot of the times, who we're calling ourselves to be, it's building that. We got to put that self together so that
that's
we can show it to the world. So
yeah.
I just wanted to say that part.
Okay.
And then the other part about being healthy is, for me, was a lot of, again, like having faith in myself, because yes, I'm a holistic nutritionist as well. And so I'm always looking into healthy ways of eating, exercising and all that stuff. But the mental capacity to be able to keep your word and to stand in the nothingness, that's the one that I was willing to exercise and continue to exercise. And how did I do that? And listening to different things. It's a world of information, right? So anything that allowed me to listen to someone that had a bigger vision than I did, and see how did they do that, And I've always been curious about, well, not always, but I became curious about um the biographies of, I don't know, Rockefeller, Coca-Cola, all this stuff, all these people that actually did something and pivot. So I'm like,
Mm,
well, if people pivot, can I pivot? And
yeah,
so it was more like that mental healthiness, the mental capacity that was
yeah,
needed for me to, and still needed for me to this day, because it's an ongoing process,
yeah.
to do that, and to be able to have faith in myself and continue to water that seed that I was putting into existence.
Nice. So just thinking about it, being curious. I think I've been watching a show called Jonathan and Jesus, and and it just reminded me. I mean, I've heard this many times that he was like, everyone's like, you're like an overnight success to him, and he's like, No, I was 20 years of totally broke and not enough groceries. And I'm like, it's so true. It's like people see you in the public and they're like, oh my gosh, like you just got up one day and it's like, no, I intentionally every day did something. I love that you're doing the research. Every day I did something to understand what was working, what wasn't, and then to research someone else or to look and listen to someone else who also faced adversity and kept going and kept believing and kept saying, it doesn't make sense to me, or I'm curious about what it could be, or where am I putting my energy and what is fruitful and what isn't. And I always tell clients when I'm coaching, I always say, we're not planting daisies, we're planting oak trees, because daisies can grow quickly, but they can die quickly. But oak trees, you got to plant and water and sunshine over and over and over. But when you get done, you will have something really strong. And probably the woman I admire the most as a professional speaker is no longer a professional speaker. And I was just thinking about her as you were talking, because I was like, even for her, and she had a massive influence and career, but it's easy to burn out. It's hard to stay consistent. It's just, I don't know, just listening to you, just think about that, saying yes to your dream, to your vision, to your hope every day, even when it's hard. And then I've taken part-time jobs along the way to fill in until I had a career that I could be
Mhm.
full-time speaker. Just what are you willing to do? I wanted to know, where did you find happiness? Because in transition and in taking a different path, having a detour, um, how did you stay happy when it was hard? Because it is hard. And when it was self doubt internally or around you or whatever it was, how did you find humor, happiness, and joy amidst the challenging moments?
That's such a good question. Because when we choose to be our word, and we choose to be responsible for what we say we're going to do, there's not much happiness there, right? Like we're not like excited, and we're not doing all that stuff. It's like real stuff. Like I'm looking myself at the mirror and I'm seeing you're procrastinating and you are getting distracted, and all these things. And so it's not like badging myself over the head, but it's really take when we take responsibility. That's why sometimes even with my clients, it's several sessions before we get to the part of we're responsible for our word and what we say, what we're going to say, because it's challenging. We're not used to that. And
Yeah.
so for me, I found, I don't know if it was happiness, but I found fuel
Mm,
when I said I was going to do something and I did it.
mm,
That is such a rocket of exhilaration.
mm,
Like I did it. Maybe I didn't do it yesterday, but today I did. And so that part was so, and it's again, it's ongoing because we can constantly, I have to constantly be mindful about, am I keeping my word? Did I do what I said I was going to do? And if I didn't, am I making an excuse? Am I living my life from excuses, from
mm,
reasons, or from my word? And so
mm,
it's a constant process. But to me, more than happiness, it was just like more than happiness was exhilaration. Like even if people around me didn't understand what was happening, I knew that for me, and I know that for me, something is happening, and I
mm,
can see how some things are moving, and I can see the wheels turning. And that in itself just gave me such fuel and exhilaration. And even though I wasn't jumping around and being excited about that, I was excited about seeing how things were coming together and how
that's
things are coming together for me still in my life, because there are many ways that I want to be still. And so, yeah, for me, it was more that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think you got excited and found joy in the hope. My first book I wrote in 2015 is called Past Detours and Possibilities, and it's all about, we all have detours, and then we have a path to choose, and we have possibilities, or we just curl up in a ball and be sad, and that's okay
Mhm.
for a period of time.
Right.
But seeing progress is so beautiful. Another show I've been watching, because my husband's rehabbing and we've been spending a lot of time watching TV, is The Chosen. And even though I know this line, like he said it 3 times and it's really been in my mind, he's like, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is
Mhm.
weak. Every morning I get up, I'm like, I should do strength training. I don't like strength training. I should do strength training. I don't really want to just do the strength. But when I do it, I'm like, hello, I don't care if I do it.
Right.
I'm like, come on, I did something. So I love
Right.
it. I totally get it. I want
Mhm.
to ask you, if you could tell your younger self 20 years ago, what wisdom would you give that young woman before she had all the voices of her own head and from the world around her 20 years ago? What would you have told
Hmm. By the time I was 20, and it might be for some people, I had already all the voices in my head.
Mhm.
It was already done. And so I was already in this sort of walking path track. I was already on track. By the time I'm thinking about, myself. I had already, you got to do college and everything's related to what you say you were going to do and medical school and all that stuff. So, I would tell myself that it's okay to question. It's okay
Mhm.
to question what you think is true for you.
Mhm.
It's okay to question that. Um, because that's still what I do now. Question what I think is true. So what I know is true for me, is that true for me? Is that true for my life? Is that true for my world? Do I have the capacity to do something else that has nothing to do with what people around me say? Is that
Yeah.
something that's possible? And
Mm.
so when I was 20, I didn't ask a lot of questions. I'm a good daughter. And all those things are good, right? Good daughter. I'm a good sister. I'm a good family, and all that stuff. Those things are good. But on the parts that I wanted to expand myself more as a human being, I didn't question much, and I just kind of did what, and I felt like that was okay. But the more I dive into this transformative awareness, then it's like, okay, we all have the option, no matter what stage we are, to continuously ask ourselves, so this is true. Is it really true? Just that, because maybe it is for you, and then you know how you put yourself together, and that's great. But if it's not, and then if we're going coming from like a holdback, or from some story that we concocted, then we know that we can intervene, and then we can see if it's still working, detour, disrupt it, move around, pivot, do
Yeah.
something. But unless we question, we're just living somebody else's life.
And so you're really saying you can be a beautiful daughter, sister, friend, and not be obedient to what you can change your story. I think
Mhm.
that's something younger people need. You can change your story. I always think when we ask 18-year-olds, what are you going to be when you grow up? I am 50 years old. I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. Why do we expect that an 18-year-old whose brain isn't even developed should know what they're going to be the rest of their lives? Like it just seems like an unrealistic amount of pressure. And I do, especially boys, I mean girls too, but when my kids were graduating, you they'd be like, "What are you going to do? Where are you going to school?" And they'd tell you, but their eyes would be like, I don't know. I'm trying to make it to college." You know what I mean? Like, just like it's so unrealistic to me. So I think it's okay to change stories. I think it's okay to question. I think like you're saying you had to realize I'm not being disobedient. I'm honoring myself and
Mhm.
my wisdom of like this might not be my path or it might not be my only path. It's part of my story, but I'm going to change it or I'm going to have a new chapter or I'm going to rewrite parts. All right, I want to hear. Tell our audience, tell our listeners. I forgot to say to our listeners, you can ask us both questions. You can leave comments. We love it. We're going to answer your questions, whether you do it live on the show or after the show is posted. We'll both respond to you. We'll encourage you on your own journey of questioning, curiosity, and story writing. But tell us a success story. Who is a client you work with? You don't have to tell us who the client is, but that you've worked with that really tell us where you met them. Tell us what your work with them did for them and where they are now. What's a success story you could share?
Hmm. I remember this lady that I worked with. I've had, you know, thankfully people that, because this is one of the things about, and this as a coach as well. It's less of on what we say and more on what they're willing to do with what we say, right? Or what we offer, the suggestions or whatever that happens. And so the transformation has a lot to do with the client, because we, as you mentioned, have to make decisions. And
Yes.
sometimes we have all the information and we have all the gatherings, but we don't do much with it. And so, but I remember this client. I started working with her. I met her through my aunt, and it was virtual. My job has always been virtual. And so I started working with her because she wanted to lose weight. And she wanted to lose weight and she wanted to sleep better, and all these things that have to do with holistic wellness and all that stuff. And in the midst of working with her and the conversations that we had, then she realized that she was living in a toxic relationship.
Mm.
And so, that's interesting. Well, how do you feel about that? And in that midst of the continued conversations and the work, she was able to lose like 25 pounds, and she was able to get out of that relationship. To me, even for me, that was like, what's going on here, right? I thought we were just talking about fruits and vegetables, right? Seeds, and and then it was like, oh wait, no, there is more here. And that's when I started realizing, this work that I intend to do has a lot to do with the whole person. Has a lot to do with spiritually, physically, mentally, socially. It has a lot to do with that. And she's the one that showed me that, because she was like, one day she's like, yep, I got out. Or I think she said she kicked him out, said we're not gonna be together. They were like married. I was like, I don't want to be responsible for like a divorce. But yeah, she's like, I understood that wasn't healthy for me, and so I left him, and now I sleep better. We started continuing to work like 2 3 months after that. Just like, I sleep better, I lost weight, I love what I'm doing, I love my life. I'm like, you go. That's fantastic.
It's amazing. I tell people, so I think I told you I used to own gyms, and I say I never helped a client lose weight ever once, but I helped them rewrite stories. And usually the reason for weight was exactly what you said: a toxic relationship, financial stress, career stress, self-esteem issues. And you start to help people change stories or look at their worth and their value. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I don't want to be with someone that berates me. I don't want to be with a boss that tells me I suck and beats me down. Like, I want to like myself, and I can't do it with these people. So I love that story, because I think there's so much noise about how we look and what we weigh, but people don't check the inside. Check their heart. Check how they're talking to themselves, how they're letting other people talk to them. Check how much money they're spending that they don't have. That food is such a drug, it can be a drug, and such a comfort in the midst of that stress. But when you don't have that stress, you don't need that comfort. You know what I mean? Like, she changed her life because she set herself free. I have a good friend right now, just completed a divorce, and I'm not a divorce advocate. I'm a marriage and commitment when it's healthy and both people are willing to work. But her partner was toxic and had been for years and years. And she's like, I'm losing weight, I'm sleeping better, I have so much more energy, I'm so much happier. I'm like, because you had a weight around your body that was suffocating and strangling you and berating you every day. That's exhausting. So I love that success story, because I think just you being with her and pouring into her helped her see that she didn't want to be with somebody who didn't treat her the way that she deserved. And all the other things come, like a side effect is weight loss, is happiness, is better sleep, is better choices, but it's not always the primary thing. So it's been so great getting to know you and hearing some of your stories. What is the best way for my audience? I know they're going to want to connect with you, learn more from you. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, fantastic. It's been great being here as well. I wanted to add a little bit to what you mentioned, that I tell my clients that weight is a symptom. The weight that you have, the overweightness that you have, is a symptom. So let's look at what's behind that. And so let's see how we can work with that, because this is the reflection of something that's happening. And so then we go into that, stories and all that stuff. But I wanted to mention that.
No, it's important, whether it's happening to them then or as a child.
Yes.
People meet that. I have a friend that's a dietitian. She says there's a lot of people with eating disorders, but there's way even more with disordered eating, because it was used as a weapon or a threat, or their body was, or whatever that. I love it. So good, important work. So where can they find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. You can Google my name. I don't think there are many names spelled Febe. So you can just find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and we'll be able to connect.
Sounds good. And we'll both answer your questions. If you write, we'll be on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Ask us questions, leave comments. We love to know who's watching our show. We always appreciate it. Thank you so much for being my guest here today.
Annie.
Thank you to our listeners for listening, leaning in as we share wisdom and ideas and hope and encouragement for you, whatever disruption you face, whether you choose it or it chooses you. I hope that you found some encouragement today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Is think about how we can support people, and that it's okay to say no, but also, like, I'll be your accountability partner, but all I can give you is a text every other Tuesday. I can't walk with you twice a week. My plate is full too. It is more respectful to say, I'm sorry I can't, than to say yes and set someone up to fail. Does that make sense? All right. I want you to think about health. Next time someone says, are you healthy? I want you to think about all 7 of these areas, not just my physical health, not just a number on the scale, because I never helped the thousands of clients I worked with lose weight because I didn't care about a number on a scale, but I helped clients change their habits, change their self-talk, and a side effect was weight loss. I helped them get their finances and their relationships in order. I helped them with what they said about themselves to themselves, and it changed everything. But my favorite area of your hearts is happiness. And so what I'd like you to do is think about what makes you happy. And you can write it in that heart or write it in the back. I love for you to come up with at least 10 things that make you happy, from rainbows to sunshine, from fresh baked cookies to cuddles with puppies, whatever it is that brings you happiness.